Hi, my name is Brian Dellerman, and we're going over texting and talking and when it is appropriate to do either or. And an example that I have is interpersonal communication, and when texting is um, taking things out of context, when you're not able to actually clearly convey the message you're trying to convey, and things are misinterpreted. And the decoding of the message is something that isn't appropriately done. So, for an example, when I had received a text message from my mom, is an example that I have is um, she sent a text to congratulate my graduation, and the idea is that it was in an attempt to convey her expression of congratulations to me, which I was able to interpret through the message, but it was just a simple, short, congratulations on the graduation. Whereas I think we would have spent more time on the phone talking about it. And for me personally, thinking about that, it was something I was going to go back over after seeing the message, wanting to express more of my direction where I was going to go with the graduation, what my plans actually were, the fact that she wasn't able to be there, and that ultimately the graduation would have been the same without her there. And I would have to say that this is when you look at the interpersonal communication and there's a lack of, and trying to take it out of or taking it in the context that it was intended. And so I would ask if you have any examples of something like that where texting was taken out of context or the message didn't get interpreted the way that you assumed it to be.
Yep, lots of times. Because there's no emotion in the text. And so you don't know how to read the other person or what they're trying to say. It's just words on a phone. It could mean anything. When Carrie texted me last week and she was upset about our conversation earlier, she wasn't as upset as I probably took it as. She just was concerned, or I don't know the right word, but she wasn't. I thought she was angry. I thought she was flashing out at me, but she wasn't. She was just upset and wanted to clear up the air on what was said. So there is no emotion. You can't tell what somebody's meaning. So their text messages have taken away, I think, our ability to talk to each other or confront each other or talk about things that we want to say. Although on the other end, sometimes it is good to be able to say things in a text and get your point across without having any interruption, and the other person, the recipient, has to read it.
Sometimes I find myself writing a book to get that out, when reality is, I guess that's when the time to make a phone call would be, instead of writing a long message in text. I think the intended purpose for texting was short, simple messages, and then you find people trying to use it for the obvious that it's not for, or it's not intended for, which would be trying to hold a full conversation with somebody through text, only to find out that that should be the sign of when to make the phone call, versus sitting there and writing a book based off of what you're trying to portray or convey as the message to the intended person, or to the receiver, I should say. And ultimately, that's when trying to make the decision of when it is time to text or time to talk. I think that's one of the issues that people have when it comes to misinterpreting it. Not being able to decide when, or not wanting to make the phone call when ultimately that's the only way you can get the point across. And then even with certain siblings, or even like grandparents or something like that, I think that there's a lack of communication based off of the way that our communication has came. Talking to my grandma and grandpa, the only way to get in contact with them is to call, and it's actually to their house phone versus a cell phone or even a simple text of asking what they're doing or how they're doing. I know that, for example, Nanny has a cell phone, but my grandmother doesn't, and to get in contact with her, it is calling her house phone, and that is it. Maybe leaving a voicemail if she doesn't answer, assuming that she's going to get back when she gets home or done with whatever she's doing, makes it to the phone. Where I can say that maybe texting is better for the more immediate contact of trying to get a short, simple message across. But I think that's where the lack of interpersonal communication comes in, or interactional communication, I should say, because there is no interaction in between the two until you get a hold of the person, where